Yo, things ready. Yo, bro. What the are you doing, bro?
What, nigga?
Yo, bro.
For Coachella.
9 days out of jail, and Tekashi 6ix9ine wasted zero time jumping back into chaos. He was already on camera wearing a dress with Young Thug's name splashed all over it like a loud statement nobody could ignore. The clip exploded across Instagram, then sprinted through TikTok and X within hours, turning into instant drama. What started as a quick viral moment cracked open something way deeper, a messy clash tied to snitching claims, identity jabs, and years of tension that never got settled. This is the full breakdown, the Coachella moment, and the wild 24 hours right after. April 12, 2026, Coachella Valley Music and Arts Festival in Indio, California, Weekend 1, Day 3. Young Thug stepped on stage and made it clear he was running the show. He kicked things off with Ski, cutting Gunna's name straight out of the hook like it meant nothing. Then he kept the energy up, bringing out Ty Dolla $ign for Carnival, Nav for Trimsky, and then dropped a huge surprise. Camila Cabello pulled up for Havana, shaking the whole crowd. It was their first time sharing a stage in years, with Northwest and Teyana Taylor spotted in the crowd, watching it all unfold. The reaction felt real, loud, and electric. But even with all those big moments, none of that ended up being the main headline. Young Thug came out rocking rainbow-colored dreads, blue, green, purple, yellow, red, all mixed together like a bold message after everything he had been through. This is someone fresh off a RICO case, dealing with snitching talk.
Niggas taking my spot. So, what's that song about? They say, there's a problem when they do it. There's a problem when I do it.
Leaked jail calls, and non-stop public pressure. The whole set felt like a loud comeback, like he was reclaiming his image in real time. The crowd was locked in, the stage was packed, everything was hitting, but one person watching didn't see a comeback at all. 6ix9ine had just been released after serving 3 months linked to supervised release violations related to an assault case and substance-related charges around April 3rd, 2026, only 9 days free, and he hadn't made any big moves yet. He was sitting back watching Coachella like everyone else, but within 24 hours of Thug's set, he flipped the switch. He jumped on Instagram Live, putting up side-by-side comparisons. Young Thug's fresh rainbow dreads right next to his own multicolored hair, making it loud and obvious what he was trying to point out. That same look he's been holding on to since 2017. For 6ix9ine, the hair isn't just style, it's identity, it's branding. It's the last piece he never let go of. The federal case, gone. Industry ties, shaken. Street respect, questioned heavy. But those bright colors, still his lane, still his signature. In hip-hop, people see rainbow hair and his name pops up first. No debate. That's the one thing nobody could take from him no matter what happened. And he made sure to say it loud. He captioned those comparisons. Guess who's trying to feel more like me? Ratting wasn't enough. He needs to feel more like me. SMH stories followed you, not me, gang, bro. Thought this was tough. He even pulled in a Vlad TV clip where he talked about people stealing styles, lining it up like Young Thug was the student and he never got credit for the blueprint.
Yo, bro. What is this? Yo, bro. We not that down bad, bro. We don't gotta do that.
Yeah, bro. If other niggas do it, then y'all niggas, oh yeah, nah, what type of, he's so trendy.
He framed it like this was something deeper, like history repeating itself right in front of everyone. Then he pushed it even further. On April 13th and 14th, 6ix9ine dropped videos of himself wearing a long dress, and this wasn't random at all. The setup was clean, mirrors everywhere, pink lighting, a full vanity scene. It looked staged for maximum attention. The reference was obvious. He was aiming straight at the Jeffery album cover, Young Thug's 2016 project, where he wore a dress and shook both hip-hop and fashion at the same time. The voiceover made it crystal clear. Since Young Thug was trying to jack the rainbow in his hair, he was about to flip it and wear a dress like Thug. He posed, fixed the outfit, and turned the whole clip into a direct mirror of what he was accusing Thug of doing. It was calculated, not casual. The footage spread fast across Instagram Reels, TikTok, and X on April 13th and 14th. Hundreds of thousands of views stacked up in hours. Big pages like Academics TV and Say Cheese TV picked it up and blasted it everywhere. Hashtags like hashtag 6ix9ine, hashtag Young Thug Vibes, and Coachella clips flooded timelines packed with rainbow emojis, rat symbols, and non-stop laughing reactions. That's the clip. Everyone saw. That's what really went viral. And the way 6ix9ine rolled it out, that wasn't random at all. This wasn't just one post and disappear energy, he played it in stages like a full rollout. First came the side-by-side comparisons to plant that copycat narrative in people's heads.
Yo, how much the plane cost us?
28,000.
Alright, so I'm gonna put 28 on on. Yeah.
I can't see.
Alright, and 28,000 on a blackjack hand rain bet. Oh my God, free hit. Let me double that.
Free double.
Let's go. Oh no. Nah, hold on. 50,000.
Then the Instagram stories kept it spinning, making sure nobody could scroll without seeing it again. After that, he dropped the Vlad TV clip to act like proof, backing up everything he was saying with receipts. And then came the big move, the dress. That was the escalation that flipped this from a simple hairstyle debate into something way louder. Now it wasn't just fans talking, every major rap commentary page had to grab it and run. By the time the dress videos hit, the audience was already locked in and ready. 6ix9ine had spent a full 24 hours setting the stage, building tension, and when that final clip dropped, it landed like a punchline nobody could ignore. Everything about it pointed to someone who had just spent 3 months locked up and came out with a plan already mapped in his head. Every post felt intentional, every move timed just right, all of it circling back to Young Thug. And Thug, as of April 14th, nothing. No post, no story, no repost, no response at all. Just silence from someone who had just stepped off one of the biggest stages of the year. That silence hit in a strange way. Maybe he was ignoring it, maybe he didn't care, or maybe he was lining something up behind the scenes. Depending on how you saw it, the whole situation looked completely different, but none of these reactions really make sense without the history behind it. To understand why something like rainbow dreads at Coachella could spark all this chaos, you have to go back, because this was never just about hair. It was like a match getting dropped near something ready to ignite. And at the center of it all, there's been one word stuck in this story since 2018.
I want your man that is on Spider White.
Who really gets to call someone a rat in hip-hop? That word snitch doesn't just sting for a moment, it spreads everywhere and sticks. It doesn't stay in one lane either. It follows every track you drop, every feature you line up, every handshake you try to make in the industry. It goes back through your whole catalog and makes people question everything they thought they knew about you. It's one of the heaviest labels a rapper can carry, not because it stops the music completely, but because it changes how people hear it. Every bar, every line, every message gets looked at differently after that. And that word, that label, is sitting right at the center of everything going on between 6ix9ine and Young Thug. Daniel Hernandez, known as Tekashi 6ix9ine, got caught up in a federal racketeering case in 2018 tied to the 9 Trey Bloods. He was facing serious prison time, real pressure, no easy way out, and in that moment, he made a decision that changed how people saw him forever. He testified in open federal court against former associates, giving investigators detailed information about gang-related activity, crimes, and people connected to the situation in exchange for a reduced sentence. No confusion, no mixed signals, no gray area about what happened. It was all out in the open, and the impact of that choice still follows him to this day. The man sat in a federal courtroom and cooperated. That part is documented, public, and stamped in history. In an industry where loyalty gets talked about like it's everything, 6ix9ine ended up being seen as the one who broke that code. Fair or not, that label stuck heavy. When he got out, he didn't try to run from it. He leaned straight into chaos and internet shock value. Instead of denying it non-stop, he flipped the approach and built his image around being loud, controversial, and impossible to ignore. Fighting the label looked like a losing battle, and acting like it never happened wasn't believable either. So he switched it up and challenged the industry directly. He basically dared people to call him out while they stood on stages talking about loyalty. But when real pressure showed up, things didn't always look so simple. For a long time, that's where everything stayed. 6ix9ine kept trolling, the industry mostly kept its distance, and the snitch conversation felt like it had already been settled in people's minds. Then 2025 changed the tone completely. A leaked police interrogation audio started circulating, and the name attached shocked a lot of people. Young Thug. The audio allegedly suggested that Jeffery Williams, known as Young Thug, spoke with investigators and mentioned people connected to his circle, including Pee Wee Roscoe, during questions tied to the Lil Wayne tour bus incident. One detail spread faster than anything else, claims that he had sat with investigators for around 2 hours voluntarily, no attorney present, just talking through situations and people connected to him. For someone whose public image was strongly tied to loyalty in his YSL circle, that detail hit hard and sparked intense debate. Thug responded and pushed back on how it was being framed. He denied fully cooperating and explained it as trying to protect someone he cared about. He also released a statement addressing the situation, making it clear he didn't agree with how everything was being portrayed and that only added more tension to an already complicated situation. "I'm sorry, this is happening, I'm moving forward." That message was out there, but the culture, it wasn't moving anywhere. The internet stayed locked in place, replaying everything over and over. Rap memes flooded timelines, social media kept digging, and old clips started resurfacing fast. Leaked jail calls hit the surface, Thug on the phone, speaking on peers, personal issues, all of it getting picked apart and thrown back into the spotlight. And hanging over everything was the YSL RICO case, still unresolved since his 2022 arrest. Every new headline, every clip, every rumor felt tied to that situation, keeping the pressure high at all times. The stakes never dropped for a second. And right in the middle of all that tension, one person stepped in who had been waiting for this exact kind of moment. 6ix9ine, the same name people had been labeling for years, jumped straight onto Instagram and called out the silence directly. He tagged Lil Baby, Future, and 21 Savage and put the question out there, why everybody's so quiet when all the songs coming out? Calling your man Spider a rat. That line hit hard and spread fast. Think about that for a second. One of the most publicly criticized figures for cooperation was now the loudest voice calling someone else out over similar accusations, demanding answers, and pointing at the industry's reaction. He was basically asking why his situation brought non-stop noise, but this one was getting treated differently. No matter how you felt about it, whether it made people angry or just uncomfortable, it sparked a real conversation. The same industry that had spent years calling him out suddenly looked quiet when it came to Thug. That contrast stood out in a big way. Then Wack 100 stepped in, adding his take like he always does. He argued that 6ix9ine's situation was already fully exposed, everything documented, consequences already faced, nothing hidden. But in his view, Thug's case was still unfolding, still complicated, and not something people could label so quickly. Agree with Wack or don't, that's on you. But what his take really showed is that this debate wasn't small talk or random noise. This had real weight, real consequences, and real voices stepping in. This wasn't just Twitter going wild for a day. This was the industry seriously questioning who gets hit with that label, who avoids it, and whether the rules stay the same for everyone. That conversation kept burning all through 2025, and it didn't cool off. But 6ix9ine wasn't about to let it stay trapped in comment sections where things disappear in a few hours. He wanted something louder, something that sticks, and that meant music. To really understand what he carried into that Coachella weekend, you have to look at the diss tracks he had been building up all year, because once it turns into music, it stops being temporary drama and turns into something permanent. An Instagram post that gets buried, a diss track that gets stamped into your catalog forever. It follows your name into interviews, shows up in conversations, and keeps playing in the background years later. You can delete a post, but you can't unsay a song once it's out there. 6ix9ine understands that better than most. After everything he went through, he's been fighting to stay relevant in an industry that hasn't fully embraced him again. Social media attention, that comes easy for him, but what he's really been chasing is impact that lasts. And in 2025, he didn't just talk. He started laying the groundwork piece by piece, setting up moves that were meant to stick long after the moment passed. The first real sign came from a snippet. 6ix9ine previewed a track built off the Itsy Bitsy Spider melody, but he twisted it into something way darker. He turned a children's rhyme into a full-blown accusation aimed straight at young Thug. The bars hit like, seen a snake turn, spider turn, rat, don't tell the world, just please let me out, man. Looping that nursery rhyme sound in a way that made the message impossible to ignore. This wasn't sluchiny or playful, it felt deliberate and sharp. Like dragging something serious out in slow motion just to make every second hit harder. He basically made a track people could hum along to, but the core of it was an accusation that Thug told on his own people. That contrast made it stick even more. Then came Facts. Even the title felt calculated. Calling a song Facts frames everything inside it like it's not up for debate before anyone even presses play. And once you hear it, there's no subtlety at all. Lines like, thought she was a thug, I done seen a snake turn rat, you a rat, hit direct with no metaphors, no coded talk, nothing hidden, just straight accusations stamped onto a track with his name attached. That kind of record doesn't disappear, it lives online, shows up in searches, and keeps resurfacing anytime the conversation comes back around. And the real move behind those tracks wasn't just noise, it was documentation. By the time Coachella weekend arrived, 6ix9ine had already built a timeline that made his trolling look calculated, not random. The receipts were sitting in the music. He wasn't just reacting to rainbow dreads off impulse, he had been putting these claims on record for months before that stage was even set up. That shift mattered. It turned what could have looked like petty online behavior into something that felt more deliberate, more structured. Whether people agreed or not, he could point back and say he'd been consistent the whole time, and he didn't stop at Young Thug either. He widened the target and went straight at the F the Streets movement, the idea that popped up after the YSL Rico situation, where artists who took plea deals could still move freely in the industry without losing support. He framed it like it was a loophole, something designed to clean up images without forcing anyone to fully address their actions. In his words though, they realized that Gunna doesn't need them. It's like a loophole, that we gotta create a movement where we can confuse the fans. That statement spread fast. Whether that take was fair or not, as a strategy it was sharp and aggressive. It painted the whole post-Rico image rebuild, especially in Atlanta rap, as something coordinated, almost like a performance meant to blur the lines for the audience. And in doing that, it flipped the narrative in a wild way. It positioned 6ix9ine, of all people, as the one calling things out exactly how he saw them, putting himself in the middle of a conversation most artists were avoiding. Then there was Woody. That's where 6ix9ine pushed the loyalty question to its sharpest edge.
From what I see, is scared of Woody. Cause I see still him being in the hood. I see Woody still in the trenches of Atlanta.
The implication behind what he was saying wasn't vague, it was direct and cutting. He suggested that Young Thug didn't step in on Woody's legal situation out of fear, not neglect. That idea hit hard because it challenged the image Thug built over years. The angle he pushed was simple but heavy. The same artist who would later walk onto the Coachella stage with rainbow dreads, performing records tied to street identity, was being accused of stepping back when someone close was still dealing with real consequences. According to that framing, it wasn't about forgetting, it was about calculating risk and choosing distance. That's the structure 6ix9ine had been building through 2025 and into early 2026. Diss tracks laid the foundation, social media kept it active, and personal accusations stacked on top piece by piece. Every move added another layer until the whole thing stood tall enough to grab attention at any moment. By the time Coachella came around, all he needed was one big public moment to point at, and Young Thug's set gave him exactly that. But even with all the posts and tracks, that was only part of the story, because when the dress entered the picture, everything shifted. It moved past music and commentary and into something way more precise, almost surgical in how it was aimed. To understand why that move hit so hard, you have to look at what fashion really means to both of them. That choice, stepping into a glam setup wearing a long dress, wasn't random or playful. It was calculated way deeper than it looked on the surface. In hip-hop, a dress is never just clothing. It's a statement, an argument, a message before a single lyric even plays. It tells the room who you are, what you stand on, and what you're not backing down from. It's power, expressed through fabric, color, and presence. And for both 6ix9ine and Young Thug, fashion has always been one of the main ways they show the world exactly who they are. That's why the dress footage didn't come off like simple trolling. It felt targeted. It hit at something deeper, something tied directly to identity. It wasn't just about copying or mocking, it was about sending a message straight at the core of how both of them present themselves. 6ix9ine's whole image plays into that. The rainbow hair, the face tattoos, the loud over-the-top style he pushed in 2017, it's all intentional. It's built to stand out, to be impossible to ignore, impossible to scroll past without reacting. And after everything he's been through, with industry ties weakened, reputation questioned, and credibility debated, that visual identity became even more important. The rainbow hair especially, that's the piece that still defines him at a glance. It's the last layer that hasn't been stripped away. His cooperation impacted relationships across the board, but visually, that signature look is still what people connect to him instantly, and that's exactly why moments like this carry so much weight. His time in prison slowed everything down, and his trolling image burned a lot of bridges across the industry, but one thing stayed untouched: the look. Nobody took that from him. The rainbow still felt like his lane, his signature. In hip-hop, you can lose deals, connections, and support, but the one thing that sticks is what makes people recognize you instantly from across the room. That visual identity matters heavy, and for 6ix9ine, that's always been the loud colors, the bold image, the presence you can't miss. So when Young Thug showed up at Coachella with multicolored dreads, blue, green, purple, yellow, red, all blended together, in 6ix9ine's view, that didn't look random at all. It didn't feel like a simple style choice. To him, it looked like someone who had just gone through his own wave of public controversy, stepping into that same kind of loud, unapologetic visual energy. The kind of energy 6ix9ine had been building and pushing for years from the ground up. Maybe that argument is a stretch. Young Thug has been experimenting with color for years, but 6ix9ine didn't need the claim to stand up in court. He just needed it to take over the Coachella news cycle and drag the spotlight back onto a field where he already had momentum. So he moved with precision. He lined up the side-by-side comparisons, dropped captions that pushed the narrative, and brought back that Vlad TV clip to make it feel backed up. Step by step, he planted the copycat idea into people's minds. Careful, deliberate, no wasted motion. And before the first wave of reactions could even settle, he flipped it into something bigger, something nobody saw coming. The dress. Footage from April 13th and 14th shows 6ix9ine fully locked into a glam setup. Long dress, mirrors catching every angle, vanity lights casting pink tones across the whole scene. He walks, turns, adjusts the fabric, and stares straight into the camera with a look that says he knows exactly what he's doing, and he wants a reaction. The reference wasn't subtle at all. Anyone familiar with the culture immediately connected it to Young Thug's Jeffery album cover from 2016, the moment he wore that floor-length ruffled outfit and sparked non-stop conversation. That image wasn't just viral, it became one of the most talked about visuals in modern rap. It pushed conversations about style, identity, and expression way beyond music. People debated it everywhere, fashion, media, fans, all trying to break down what it meant. And that moment gave Young Thug something bigger than just hits. It gave him cultural weight that extended outside of music. That kind of impact, that kind of recognition, that kind of influence, it doesn't fade easy. That was exactly the angle 6ix9ine stepped in with. The mockery wasn't random, it worked on multiple levels at the same time, and that's why it landed so heavy. On the surface, it looked like pure pettiness, a grown man in a dress clowning another man's fashion moment. But underneath that, it was way more calculated. He took one of Young Thug's most talked about moments of self-expression and flipped it into a punchline. By recreating the look in a staged, almost exaggerated way, he stripped it of its original meaning and turned it into something people would laugh at instead of analyze. The vanity mirror setup made it even sharper. The tone felt sarcastic, controlled, intentional, and the voiceover spelled it out clearly. Since Young Thug was trying to jack the rainbow in his hair, he was going to wear a dress like Thug. That wording, like him, that wasn't 6ix9ine either. It created distance. 6ix9ine positioned himself like the one orchestrating the whole narrative, watching both sides and framing it as imitation either way. The message underneath: none of this is untouchable, none of it is off limits. The unspoken argument hit hard, everything is performance, and whoever admits it first controls the narrative. That's the frame he was pushing, and this wasn't even the first time he used that approach. Back in 2022, when Young Thug was arrested in the YSL RICO case, 6ix9ine had already pulled from the Jeffery era visuals, reposting them with captions that mocked the situation and tied fashion back into real-life consequences. The Coachella version of this wasn't something thrown together last minute. It was a calculated return to one of his most effective pressure points, now sharpened by 2 more years of tension and boosted by the energy of being freshly out of jail. This wasn't random, it was strategic. The clip spread almost instantly. The dress footage and the rainbow hair comparisons started moving side by side, flooding Instagram Reels, TikTok, and X in overlapping waves. Big distribution pages picked it up and pushed it way beyond what 6ix9ine's own audience could have done alone. By April 14th, it had taken off completely. At that point, the footage wasn't even just about the beef anymore. It became its own viral moment. It had everything: pettiness, irony, visual shock, and layers of industry context that pulled people in even if they weren't following either artist closely. And through all of that noise, Young Thug still hadn't said a single word publicly. That silence sat in the background of every post, every comment, every reaction, making people read into it even more. The internet split fast, different sides, loud opinions, constant debate about what it all meant and who was right. Some saw strategy, some saw disrespect, others saw pure entertainment, but nobody ignored it. To really understand where the situation stands and where it could go next, you have to look at how people reacted to the footage, because the response says a lot about the culture right now and how these moments actually land. When footage like this drops, the first thing to watch is the numbers. They tell you fast whether it actually connected or just made quick noise. And this time, the speed said everything. It landed, and it landed hard. Within hours of going up on April 13th and 14th, the clips were already pulling in hundreds of thousands of views across Instagram, Reels, TikTok, and X combined. That kind of momentum doesn't build slow, it explodes. Big platforms like Academics TV and Say Cheese TV jumped on it early, and that changed everything. Once those pages picked it up, the clips moved way beyond 6ix9ine's own audience and started reaching people who weren't even following the situation before. On X, posts framed like 6ix9ine calls out Young Thug for copying his rainbow hairstyle started stacking thousands of views in short bursts and kept climbing fast. The comment sections filled up just as quickly, rainbow emojis everywhere, rat symbols popping up, laughing and crying faces flooding the threads. That kind of reaction shows more than attention. It shows engagement. People weren't just watching, they were picking sides, reacting loud, and keeping the conversation alive. The hashtags were running wild, but here's where it really gets interesting. The reaction didn't land in one place, it split straight down the middle, and that divide says more than the footage itself ever could. One side of the internet gave 6ix9ine the crown instantly, no hesitation, petty king, entertainment gold, unbothered, untouchable. Those comments were everywhere. People were saying 6ix9ine never misses an unmatched level, but one reaction stood out more than anything. This might be the first post by him I ever liked. That's not coming from his usual supporters, that's people who normally ignore or dismiss him getting pulled in. That's what made this hit different. The execution was sharp enough to grab attention outside his core audience. Memes started exploding at the same time, edits comparing Young Thug to a 6ix9ine clone, copycat jokes, side-by-sides tying the rainbow hair back to older accusations. It all started flooding timelines. People even lined up both of their looks over the years, building full visual comparisons. For that side, 6ix9ine did exactly what he's known for when he's fully locked in. He spotted the moment, moved fast, and leaned all the way into it, even if it meant looking wild on camera. That kind of bold, no hesitation move is something a lot of artists wouldn't even try. But the other side pushed back just as loud, and they had their own point. In those spaces, the footage was called tired, obsessive, and more about chasing attention than making a real statement. To them, it looked like someone pouring all that post-prison energy into staying in the spotlight. Young Thug's side came with arguments that had real backing. People pointed out that rainbow and multicolored dreads didn't start with 6ix9ine. That style has been around for years, way before him, and more importantly, Thug has been experimenting with color and pushing fashion boundaries his entire career, so the idea of claiming ownership over a hairstyle that existed long before either of them, to a lot of people that felt like a stretch. The kind of argument that only works if you're already trying to score points in the moment. Comments like dreads been a thing and Thug wore it better anyway started picking up serious traction. At the same time, the snitching debate came roaring back on both sides, and that's where things got sharp fast. Because the irony sitting in the middle of all this is hard to ignore. 6ix9ine, arguably one of the most publicly documented examples of cooperation in modern hip-hop, was now the loudest voice calling out someone else over similar accusations. And on top of that, he was challenging an industry that had heavily criticized him, while suggesting it was being quieter in this situation. That contrast hit people differently depending on where they stood. The phrase "the irony of 6ix9ine calling anyone a rat" started flooding comment sections everywhere. For some, that alone shut the whole argument down before it even started. But the other side wasn't backing off either. They argued that even if the messenger is controversial, the question being asked still matters. And that's where the debate kept growing louder. The argument that 6ix9ine was exposing real industry hypocrisy didn't just sit on the edges, it gained real traction. The idea was simple but powerful. The rat label doesn't always get applied based on what actually happened. It often depends on who you are and who stands next to you. That take hit hard for a lot of people watching how things played out after the Atlanta Rico fallout, because from their view, the rules didn't seem consistent. The same flexibility being shown in some situations was never extended to 6ix9ine, and that contrast stuck with people. And then there was the silence from major names. Lil Baby, Future, 21 Savage, the same artist 6ix9ine had tagged and called out before, didn't say a word, no support, no criticism, no engagement at all, just quiet. That kind of silence doesn't go unnoticed. It felt calculated, like nobody wanted to step into a situation that had no easy angle. And for 6ix9ine, that quiet worked in his favor, because from his perspective, if there was a strong rebuttal, someone would have stepped up and said it. Instead, the lack of response became part of the conversation. It added weight to his claims, whether people agreed with him or not. And then there's Young Thug himself, still completely silent as of April 14th, 2026. No posts, no clips, no reaction at all. That silence carries meaning in multiple ways. It could be strategy, refusing to feed attention into something designed to go viral. It could be discipline, especially with legal matters still active, where every public statement matters. Or it could just be a decision to stay above the noise. But no matter the reason, that silence isn't empty. It's shaping how people read the entire situation in real time. Or it could mean something is loading behind the scenes. There's already been talk about Thug's DBC album, plus hints of tour plans starting to surface. If he responds, it might not be through posts or quick clips. It could land on a full track backed by an entire project. And if that happens, every Coachella reel might start to feel like a small moment compared to what comes next. That's the tension sitting in this whole situation. 6ix9ine got out of jail and applied pressure in just 9 days. No build up, no hesitation, straight into the spotlight. Meanwhile, Young Thug stepped off one of the biggest stages of the year, rainbow dreads and all, and stayed completely silent. Two different strategies, same word hanging over both of them, rat. One is using noise, flooding timelines, forcing reactions. The other is using silence, letting the moment breathe and keeping people guessing. And the internet, split right down the middle, watching closely to see which approach actually hits harder. When everything settles, this moment went viral because it had all the ingredients. Visual shock, layered history, real tension, and a deeper issue hiding underneath what looks like a fashion clash. This isn't just about style, it's tied to something way bigger that's been building for years. And whatever Young Thug does next, if he responds at all, the next chapter is already in motion. If you made it this far, hit that like button, subscribe, share this with someone who's been following the drama, and drop a comment with your take. Who really controlled this moment?